is Monday, February 8th, 2021. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, we'll show you a heated discussion between Congressman Hakeem Jeffries and new Congressman Burgess Owens. He's black from Utah. He got his ass handed to him by the brother from Brooklyn. Wait until we show you what went down. Plus, we'll talk with Ron Busby, the president of the U.S. Black Chamber, Inc., to discuss the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen's plan to help black businesses affected by the pandemic. In Chicago, Mayor Lightfoot and the Chicago Teachers Union may have struck a deal for reopening public schools. Also, in Rochester, New York, an ex-police chief is downplaying last year's arrest of Daniel Prude. Okay, but isn't it the same police department? Will they pepper spray Daniel, black girl? Yeah, okay. And Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has signed a memo to combat extremism within the armed forces. Ooh, Fox News is not happy. And the Maryland Senate has passed a multi-billion-dollar measure to settle a lawsuit brought by 4 Maryland HBCUs. We'll talk with the head of the Maryland Black Caucus. Plus, we'll speak with 2 guests about a health disease and how it's impacting the black community. Plus, we'll remember life and legacy of heavyweight champion Leon Spinks and James Brown's Emcee, Danny Ray. Folks, it is time to bring the funk. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
If you are going to be a new Republican in Congress, it's best not to show your ass when you get there. Now we already seen crazy Marjorie Greene. I mean, we know how ignorant she is. And there's a black Republican from Utah who has consistently shown his ass on Fox News, sound like a damn fool, a former NFL player, Burgess Owens. Well, Burgess decided on his first day as a member of the House Judiciary Committee to school Democrats on the issue of patriotism for not supporting an amendment Republicans pushed requiring the Pledge of Allegiance at all meetings. Y'all, now he proposed that his peers in the committee to show leadership by standing for the flag during the pledge to show others what unity looks like. Well, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries from Brooklyn, head of the House Democratic Conference, let's just say Hakeem had a few words for Leah Burgess. Play.
I was blessed to grow up in the Deep South, 60s, days of KKK, Jim Crow, segregation. I say blessed because I grew up in a community that believed in our nation, believed in God, believed in their kids, and they were going to fight to prove they could overcome any obstacle. It was a great community that taught us the importance of a flag. It taught us to love God, country, family, respect for women, and authority. And you know the results of that many of you don't know about? In 1960, it was a black community that led our country to growth in the middle class. The black community that led our country in men matriculated from college, men committed to marriage, over 70%. Percentage of entrepreneurs, over 40%. Why were we kicking butt in those days? Like every other community that was not assimilated at that time, we loved our country. We believed in meritocracy. We taught our kids to stand for that flag and for what it represented. Not perfect, but the best thing in the history of mankind. I went to University of Miami, the third black to get a scholarship, graduating in biology and chemistry. Why? Because in my segregated community, we were committed to education. I would go to my dad's laboratory every summer and work. And when a white guy told me I couldn't do it, I spent the next 4 years in college living in that library to prove him wrong. Because my race, like every other race, looked at this country as a place of second chances, of opportunity, and big dreams. Went into the NFL in 1973. No black centers, no black quarterbacks, no black linebackers, no black middle linebackers. Why? Because those are white thinking positions. $50,000 as a bonus as a first-round draft choice. We have guys making $50 million today to play any position they want to, will not stand for the flag because they've been taught by their adults not to love our nation. What can we do here as leaders, guys? Let's put aside the partisanship, appreciate the fact that we have a body here of every color under the rainbow, every background. Across this country, we have black police officers, black mayors. You know, as we have more and more freedom to achieve our dreams, we seem to point more and more at other people for the failures that we have when we make bad decisions. What is my message, guys? I'm going to follow what Congressman Lee says. It's not about words. It is about actions. 15 seconds to show our kids that we're adults, that we can agree to disagree, but we love our country enough to at least stand and represent our flag. For a young man in 73 to 83 to stand on that sideline and get teary-eyed because our flag was flying, we've lost that. We're teaching our kids, any mistake you make is somebody else's fault. That is not the way our country rolls, guys. We gotta do better than that. Why don't we start off just by one simple action? We talk about actions, one simple action. As leaders, let's stand, let's pledge our flag and say thank you for this opportunity to represent the people we're sent here to represent. And that we will be the example of what unity looks like, not just a word. We'll act by saying the words that bring our country together, putting our hands on our hearts and meaning it, and showing everyone, doesn't matter what side of the aisle we're on, this is one thing we can agree on. I yield back.
Will the gentleman yield? Gentleman yield?
No.
Oh, I thank the distinguished chair for this opportunity. I move to strike the last word. I was hoping to engage with the new distinguished gentleman from Utah as he sat here lecturing us about patriotism, and I was just going to ask him how he voted after a violent mob attacked the Capitol to hunt down members of Congress, to hang Mike Pence, to assassinate Nancy Pelosi, to stop us from undertaking our constitutional responsibilities as part of the peaceful transfer of power. More than 100 officers seriously injured, brain injuries, head trauma. One officer lost 3 fingers. Another officer, because of an assault on him, is likely to be blind. Officer Sicknick died. Blood was spilled. 2 other officers are no longer with us. And you want to sit here and lecture us about patriotism? When you voted to object to an election that you know Joe Biden won and perpetrated the big lie? I look forward to working with you. We worked with Donald Trump on criminal justice reform, the First Step Act. We worked with Donald Trump on the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, his signature political issue. When you know if you were in the other position, you would have never worked with a Democratic president on their signature political issue, trade. But we did it because it was the right thing for America. So we're going to work with Republicans whenever and wherever possible. We did it with Donald Trump. But the notion of you coming here lecturing us on your first day before this committee, it's not about words, it's about actions. You know what? Explain your actions on January 7th when you supported an insurrection. And I was ready to have a dialogue.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I believe the gentleman should address his comments to the chair.
Can I yield?
The gentleman gentleman will address his comments to the chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I was happy to have a dialogue with the distinguished.
Can I answer that? Will you yield?
No.
Good. Yeah, why
I
ask
gave him.
questions?
Mr. Jeffries' time.
It's my time,
The gentleman from New York has the floor.
and you don't really want any of this either.
It's his time now.
But
Will the gentleman yield?
I gave him an opportunity to yield.
Will the gentleman yield to anybody else?
He chose not to.
Apparently not.
So I'm going to finish my statement, and then I'll give you an opportunity to respond.
All right.
But you said it was not about words, it's about actions. Those actions, Mr. Chairman, in my view, were unpatriotic to provide aid and comfort to what Republicans in many parts of the country have characterized as a violent insurrection incited by the former president of the United States of America. You also said that any mistake is not your fault in terms of what's being taught to others. That's what the former president of the United States peddled for 4 years. He took no responsibility for anything. And Mr. Chairman, there's some members on the other side of the aisle, including perhaps former NFL players, who defended that kind of irresponsible behavior. So it's just hard to be lectured here, given the actions that have been taken. And I would just hope that we're going to proceed with some measure of truth, decency, and intellectual integrity as we make our arguments, even though we know we're going to fiercely disagree, as has been in the case in the past. I'm happy to yield.
Okay. Was it insurrection when in 2016, 7 of your colleagues objected? Was it insurrection for the last 3 Republican wins, presidential wins that they objected? No, it was not. It was a voice. It was having the people realize you had some concerns. Now, in terms of...
Thank you. Reclaiming my time, you asked the question. I would just simply say, and the impeachment managers are going to do a great job, but a violent insurrection resulted in the spilling of American blood. People died. The Capitol was desecrated. Urine and feces was left behind. The Confederate flag was bandied about. That didn't even happen in this Capitol during the Civil War. The Trump flag was placed in the stead of the American flag. That's an insurrection. That's sedition. That's undemocratic. That's problematic. And the American thing to do is to stand up to it. I yield back.
Okay.
Y'all don't have Burgess's response? Was there a response to that? There was no response to that? Woo! Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, political analyst, Benjamin Dixon, host of Benjamin Dixon, the show, Dr. Julian Mavo, economist, president emerita at Bennett College. Clearly, former Utah Congresswoman Mia Love Avis did not warn Burgess Owens, don't bring your ass to Congress trying to show up and show out, and don't let the Brooklyn come out of Hakeem Jeffries.
No, she didn't warn the brother. She ain't warn the brother. He just came on up in there all reckless and got wrecked. Okay, it's really sad that you have someone that, in his attempt, people can have different political views. Believe it or not, I actually have some friends who happen to be Republican. But this right here, the argument that he was making was completely detached from fact. And we don't even have to go back decades in terms of fact. We're just going back a couple of weeks in terms of fact when he tried to deny what happened in that chamber. Also, Congressman Jeffries picked up on this, but of his initial soliloquy, what I really focused in on was his specific statement that, quote unquote, any mistake we make is someone else's fault. Nothing annoys me more than when you have a Black person who is put into a position in order to chastise other Black people, when actually the very thing that they are chastising Black people for, the white people who put them there are guilty of it. And that's exactly what this is. As Representative Jeffries rightly pointed out, Trump has never taken responsibility for anything. Never. First of all, let me put it like this. He doesn't take responsibility for most things. For things that happen to go right that he has nothing to do with, he will attempt to take responsibility for that. All right? And that's just one small example of this ridiculous attack on Black people. Let's just be clear about who he is, why he's there, how people felt comfortable putting him there, because they saw him as someone who would put Black people in their place. But luckily, there was someone on that committee who rightfully put him in his place instead.
Man, the thing that I just really cracked me up, that Burgess wasn't even smart enough to realize how dumb he is. and then he goes, well, you know, when Democrats objected, and Hakeem basically was like, but we ain't tear shit up. We didn't sit here and tell folks to come in and piss all over the Capitol. We didn't tell them to beat and kill cops. We didn't tell them to take the eyes out. Cops losing their eyes, fingers losing their fingers. And I'm sitting there going, and your ignorant ass can't figure that out? But see, this is what happens when you get some ignorant. And let me tell you something. I know a lot of Black conservatives, and this is probably their reaction. Look at this mother. Damn.
Making us all look
You just
bad.
come to Congress embarrassing us the first damn day.
Roland, this is what happens.
Hold on. Bean, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, when someone is so ignorant, they don't realize how ignorant they really are, and they speak out of turn. This is just another incident of a blackface on behalf of white supremacy. He really thought he had some ammunition trying to stand and cape for the flag. All right, God bless America, but there's a lot of stuff that has to be answered for, and we're not just going to be satisfied with tokenism and with the idea that it is more important for us to stand for the flag than it is for us to rectify what happened a few weeks ago. No, he met his match that day.
The thing here that I also just found to be laughable, Julian, is Republicans love to play this game of I'm more patriotic, and so it's the flag, it's the Pledge of Allegiance, it's all of these how dare you kneel, you must stand. Yet the same party who's doing a best that has introduced more than 100 voter suppression bills. They're trying to change the voting laws in Pennsylvania, and Georgia, and Arizona, all over the country. And it's like, oh, so is that patriotic? See, I love this fake patriotism that they want to hold folks to. And then Burgess, the white guy said this to me, and I spent every day in the library prove him wrong. I'm not wasting my time on no racist ass white people. I ain't proving a damn thing. Man, take your monkey ass on with your racism.
Bro, here's the thing. When you play football regularly, you have put your brain at risk. There is a lot of data that suggests that when you play football regularly, you put your brain at risk. This boy has clearly put his brain at risk. And we saw that. Hakeem Jeffries was not even time enough for him. He was overtime. If you do that in football, I don't know. I'm not a sports fan. But he was overtime for him. These Republicans have been so hypocritical about what they want. What they really want is to win. I mean, I was on a television show with Armstrong Williams about 3 years ago, and he said, our goal is to win. He said, our goal is not to be fair. Our goal is to win. And we're seeing this now. Their goal is to win. And so whether they have to take up for the orange man, whether they have to take up for Marjorie Greene, whatever, whatever they'll do, they're going to do that because they want to win. Now, that woman needs to be not only institutionalized, but put into a straitjacket with a muzzle, which is what they did to enslaved people back in the day, a straitjacket and a muzzle. But everybody is okay, well, she has a right to the First Amendment. The First Amendment that calls for an assassination of the House Speaker, give me a break. But these people, in the height of hypocrisy, are simmering in their nonsense. And there are few, but not none, responsible Republicans who will deal with this. So this Burgess brother, I don't know where he came from and I don't know where he's going, but he's going somewhere. And it's not any place close to us.
But here's the deal, though. I mean, Avis, I've seen Burgess on Fox News talking all this nonsense and all this BS. And this is the game that they play. And this is where, no, we gonna checkmate your punk ass. That's what we gonna do. And that's what Hakeem should have done. Exactly what he did. And then, I'm reclaiming my time. Just go and sit over there and be quiet. And then all the white Republicans jumping in. Well, you ain't gonna let me shut your ass up too. Be quiet. But again, and that's why it was like the first day. This the first day. This is the equivalent. First day of school. You show your ass on the first day of school. Like you don't even wait till Friday. You on the first day of school. On the first day. And the whole that's the equivalent of the whole class look at you like you showing your ass on the first day. Like you ain't even gonna wait. That's why, this clip went viral, a 2-minute clip. I said, I got to see the whole exchange. I need everybody to hear what this fool said and the full response of Hakeem Jeffries because he laid him out. And all I know is there's a dead body somewhere in the halls of Congress, and it got Burgess Owens stamped on his forehead after he just got laid out by Hakeem.
Is he related to Candace? I don't know.
I tell you right now, if your last name Owens, you ain't trying to claim not now one of them fools.
They drink the same
That is
Kool-Aid.
true. That is absolutely true. Here's the issue also. The thing is, this is the difference almost like from coming from the minor leagues to the majors, right? Because he was in the echo chamber, as you mentioned, of Fox News. So, of course, he's going to get doted on. He's going to get loved. He's going to get all the praise and affection because he is repeating the ridiculous messages that they want to be repeated, or at least how much longer they can remain in existence until they get sued out of existence, right? And so there he was the main man, the main man. So he comes into this position with this false sense of certainty in himself and his misguided opinions, and he got checked. This is what you call, it's like he got completely ambushed on day one after walking into this room thinking that he was going to be the one doing the body slamming, and instead it got turned around and he himself is the one that ended up getting sacked.
This is what happens. Ben, I keep warning all these Fox News people. This is what happens when you go on Fox News, where they do affirmation TV, and there's nobody on the other side to check you on your craziness. And so then you figure, I'm right. So then you bring that BS somewhere else, then you get your ass served. Then all of a sudden it's kind of like, damn, what happened? Because you sat over there with them crazy white folks on Fox News, Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, all the rest of them, and y'all didn't have anybody else debating. See, there's a reason why they don't call me. There's a reason why. I mean, they don't even, and let me tell you that they're not calling me. I emailed them. Like, holla at a brother. Laura, that girl, the Libertarian Kennedy, Harris, Faulkner, Sean, Tucker, they all like, no, that Negro crazy. We ain't go. We know the game they play. Burgess spent too much time going on Fox News, yak, And then Hakeem said, pass me some powder. Let me pimp slap this fool.
I didn't realize how hilarious this panel is, and it's so true.
Oh, no,
Everything
Ben, this is a black show. This is a black show. See, you ain't gonna get, hey, ain't no MSNBC, CNN, you ain't gonna get no references to baby powder and pimp slapping and monkey ass. You ain't gonna get that. This is a black show. For my white viewers who love watching the show, they appreciate learning about blackness when they watch this show. Because I'm wearing today's the 95th anniversary of my black high school, Jack Yates in Houston. This is a black show.
You know, I have my Vaseline right over here, and I think Hakeem already used some, and I think Burgess is going to need a little bit more, because the honest truth is that echo chamber of Fox News really is, for the last 4 years, they've been serving an audience of one, and that's Donald Trump. And I think Republicans have missed the pendulum swing, right? Like, we're not playing around with white supremacy anymore. White supremacy marched up those steps of the Capitol on January 6th and challenged American democracy, period. And so anyone who's still lingering with this idea that they could ride Donald Trump's coattails to some modicum of success, they're sorely missing out on the reality. And if they're listening or appearing on Fox News, that's even more reason why he's completely clueless to the fact that it wasn't acceptable before the insurrection. It certainly isn't acceptable to kowtow and to be beholden to white supremacy after we've seen how dangerous white supremacy is, not only to black people, we've known that since 1619, but it's dangerous to America as a whole.
Yeah, because bottom line is this here. Again, you got to check these folks where you can, and that's what we all about. Now, I'm going to talk about this as a black show. We also focus on when it comes to black folks getting the money. And so one of the things you've been hearing me talk about a lot on this show, and then, of course, we still are talking about it, is the notion of hashtag where's our money, hashtag black economic justice. And again, white America loves for us. They ain't got no, I'm just letting y'all know, white America really has no problem for us talking about mass incarceration and criminal justice reform and social justice. But when you get to the money, then it all changes. See, I told y'all last week, they didn't have a problem with Dr. King when he was talking about voting rights, when he was talking about housing, when he was talking about going to parks and restrooms and riding buses. Actually, they did have a problem with housing because they filibustered that for 2 years because they knew that was also dealing with wealth. But when Dr. King started talking about the money, that's when there was a problem. Friday, Vice President Kamala Harris and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen held a virtual discussion with the U.S. Black Chamber, Inc. And we live streamed that right here on our Roland Martin Unfiltered platforms. You can see the full discussion. It's about going to our YouTube channel. As a part of the conversation, they talked about the American Rescue Plan and how it could help black businesses. Both Yellen and Harris confirmed there will be aid and support for black businesses who have suffered far worse than their white counterparts during this economic crisis. Now, there were 2.6 million black-owned businesses in America prior to COVID. Some reports say we lost 40% of black businesses. Y'all, do the math. That's more than 1 million. Now, keep in mind, of the 2.6 million black-owned businesses we had prior to COVID, 2.5 million only had one employee. They were doing an average revenue of $54,000. So let's talk about this with Ron Busby. He's the president of the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc. Glad to have you here, Ron. The thing here is, when I talk about black economic justice, I've said this when I keynoted your organization, that too often there have been black economic conversations and black business people weren't in the room. I have nothing against any civil rights group at all, but that ain't what they do. If you're going to talk about black economics, you should be talking to black people who literally own businesses, who are the ones dealing with that very subject.
That's a great point, and thank you for having us on. And Friday was historic in the fact that, first, obviously, we had the vice president, but equally, if not more important, was the fact that the Secretary of Treasury, Janet Yellen, was at the table. And had we had the opportunity to be at the table earlier on, I think many of the things that we suffered as Black business owners and just Black people may not have occurred. As you stated, we had 2.6 million Black-owned businesses and 2.5 had no payroll, but yet the stimulus package was based upon the payroll needs of the businesses versus the needs of the businesses. And so many of the businesses, 76% of our businesses, said they either got no funding or less than what they needed because of the fact that most Black-owned businesses have employees, but they're contractors, they're
Right.
1099s, they're family members, but yet they weren't able to write off or even pass on any of that expense to the federal government.
Yeah. I mean,
So it is important for us to do.
I'll give you an example. I mean, the reality is the number of employees that we have here, but we had 10, 12 people. We only have though 5 who are full time. More than half of the people actually are contract. And so when we submitted our PPP application requesting about 238,000, we only got 38,000 because of the number of full time. And this is also an example of and so then what happened was those people who are contract, the way the rules were set up, they had to apply individually. But here was the problem. They didn't have the same relationships. First of all, those of us who had relationships with banks or with organizations that could actually fast track our application was different from those even Black businesses who had no relationship. And one of the things that we learned in PPP and that Congress had no idea about was that if you were a Black business, if you were not dealing with loans from a bank, frankly, and the Black business was thinking, yeah, well, this is my bank. No. The banks were like, no, you just got a checking account. You're not really a customer. You have a check. So they treated businesses that actually had credit lines and loans from the bank as customers. If you had a checking account, you just had a checking account.
Well, the problem was the banks got paid based upon the size of the loan. If the average Black-owned business stated was $54,000 in annualized revenue, and the first round of PPP, the average size loan was $150,000, we were never going to be a good loan. Even the second round, the average size loan was $75,000. Once again, it was not a good relationship. Now, as we prepare to roll out the next portion of the loans, you'll see that they're pushing many businesses now to go to CDFIs, community banks, which is great, except for the fact that the majority of Black businesses still bank with the Wells Fargos and the B of A's and the larger institutions because they understand that's where they can get the deposits. And so Black banks make money just like other banks when you make a loan. And so many Black banks didn't have the infrastructure nor the dollars to be able to facilitate many of the small Black-owned business loans that were needed. And so we're trying to hold both the larger institutions accountable, as well as making sure that the smaller CDFIs and Black-owned banks get the opportunity to participate. And most importantly, Roland, it was about relationships, as you stated. When the stimulus package came out that Friday, it was a $349 billion stimulus package. By Saturday afternoon, $250 billion of those dollars had already been awarded to 50 publicly traded white firms without any questions about did they need it for payroll? Had they lost customers? Had they lost revenue? It was relationships. And so by the time the smaller businesses, not even micro businesses, but when I say smaller businesses, I'm talking about businesses with 100 employees or less, even had the chance to be included, they were so far down the line, many of the banks did not have the ability to even have conversations with them.
See, the thing here, and why we are talking about this and why we're doing this segment, like I got somebody named CC on my YouTube channel who says, reparations now. Well, here's the deal. You got to get 218 votes in the House. You got to get 60 votes in the Senate. Has to be signed into law. Then it has to also withstand a judicial challenge. Good luck.
Yeah.
Here's what we're talking about right now. What we're talking about right now is the federal government spends $500 billion a year on contracts. On media advertising alone, the federal government spends $1 billion a year. There are billions of dollars being spent every single year on contracts in the Department of Defense. This brother Joe Anthony is suing DDB. They got a 10-year, $4 billion advertising contract from the Department of Defense. 10 years, $4 billion. That's $400 million a year. So while all the folks over here argue for reparations, and knock yourself out, I'm going to try to get the existing money right now and get a fair share, because the problem is we're sitting here, we should be saying, okay, what's the black participation when it comes to the federal pension fund? What's the black participation when it comes to advertising? The black participation when it comes to HUD contracts? When it comes to breaking up the larger contracts, going from prime, forcing us to be subprime. So my deal is that's where we are. The short-term money right now. Okay, COVID. How much money is going to firms doing testing? And what about what black companies actually are doing testing? What about the distribution of vaccine? What about, the awareness campaigns when it comes to the vaccine as well? I saw a commercial last night on the Super Bowl from one company saying, take the vaccine. There are billions sitting on the table right now, and we've got to be getting the money that's on the table right now.
That's why it was very important to have the secretary at the meeting. I believe that it is people that are important as much as it is policy, because it is people that will be at the table that will ensure that our voices as well as our concerns are there. Let me say this. Early on, when we first came up with the stimulus package during the last administration, nowhere in the 700 plus pages of documentation did you read the words Black or African American. Let me also say this. When we got to the table, the folk that were already at the table, unfortunately, were the Asian community. And just like when Rodney King happened, I lived in Oakland. When Rodney King's situation happened in Southern California, it was the Asian community that had their documentation prepared, they had the need, they had the response, and they were the ones that got the funding early on. You know Danny Bakewell well, Roland, in his role there. He got involved and he was able to change the dialogue later on. When we got to the table, it was going to be the Asian community that was saying, hey, our businesses are suffering. When people walk into our facilities and stores and restaurants, they see that it's Asian owned and they leave. When they see us on the side of the street, they go to the other side of the street. So thus, they felt like they should be in front of the line. We said, no way. If anybody's going to be at the front of the line, it should be African-American business owners and Black communities. We were then successful in saying, okay, we will make it race neutral, but it's got to be based upon data. Now, the U.S. Black Chamber came to the conversation early on and said we were going to lose between 35 and 40% of our businesses. No one wanted to hear that because there was not data there, and they felt that it was an emotional conversation. Then the Federal Reserve came back and said, oh, guess what? You actually lost 41% of your businesses. Then all of a sudden became, how did that happen? What can we do? We've got to be intentional. We can no longer allow the federal government or anyone else to create solutions around diversity and inclusion, around minority participation. Roland, this is a Black show, and I love you for that, because this ain't a Black and brown conversation or a minority issue. This is a Black issue, and there needs to be Black programs and Black accountability. And that was what the whole intention of Friday was, to lay out the concerns of Black businesses as well as the solutions of Black businesses, and making sure that this administration was going to be held accountable.
But Ron, we also got to explain to Black people, all these people out here that, I love it when they love playing this clip where Kamala says, I'm not going to do anything that's specifically for Black people, because they can't. You have to, you literally cannot pass, like when somebody says, well, you know, this bill was passed for the gays. Somebody on YouTube said that. First of all, you can pass a bill when you say LGBT, that mean black gay, white gay, Asian gay, Latino gay.
Exactly.
That mean gay.
Exactly.
Okay? That mean gay.
Everybody.
You cannot pass a race-specific bill. All y'all folks who be saying all this nonsense because y'all listen to too many other black people who yap their mouth on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, who will not tell you what the federal law is, how the Supreme Court has already ruled. Which is why policymakers have to craft language that actually goes to affected groups or disaffected groups at disproportionately us. So, perfect example. We have died at a disproportionate rate due to COVID. So if you craft a COVID bill, and if you say that the media advertising dollars for COVID should be targeted first to communities most disproportionately impacted by COVID, nowhere in what I just said have I said black. But what I did say was black.
You can even do better. We know the 40 communities, the 40 zip codes, the 40 counties that were impacted the most by COVID-19. When the infrastructure bill is being created, we're saying go to those 40 counties first. We know that those 40 counties consist of predominantly black communities. So then we know that it's targeted for those zip codes. Secondly, we can say that the contractors need to be housed within those zip codes. So we now know that black contractors have the opportunity to participate in the infrastructure bill. The third leg of that is we can now say to those contractors that are being awarded those contracts that you need to hire from within the zip code in which the infrastructure is being created. So now we've attached the city or the state, more than likely the city. We've attached contractors, more than likely black, and we've attached the employee base, which is more than likely also going to be African Americans. That portion of it we can do and it not be race-based, but geography as well as need.
And so what is your plan? Clearly you have an administration. First of all, I'm going to get that in a second. Also explain to the folk, because again, I walk people through this. We talk about contracts. The Trump folk moved back to the old way of doing business with Reagan, with typical Republicans. And that is what they did was they stopped, they bundled contracts. Yeah. And so that meant that if you try to fight for a contract, compete for one, you were competing for a $100 million contract versus competing for a $10 or $20 million contract. And so that throws people out. Also, didn't the Trump people also stop tracking?
Yeah, I was going to say, more importantly than that is there has been no transparency in the last 4 years of who's been awarded contracts, how much, and what the diversity. In the previous administration, we've always known that SBA had a goal of 23%. The last 4 years of the Obama administration, they exceeded that to the tune of around 27%. As soon as this Trump administration came into play, they no longer had transparency there, so there was no accountability. We could not see who was being awarded contracts or who was losing contracts. We don't know what the contracts were paying. We do know that during his administration, the richest man in the world was Elon Musk, and he got there through federal government contracts. So we
wait a minute. Donald Trump's daddy. Donald Trump's daddy's financial, Donald Trump's money is a result of federal housing contracts. His daddy was a billionaire because of federal contracts, exclusively.
Yeah, so Donald Trump understands the federal government very, very well. So there were some things that we were successful, and I hate to say it, but under his administration. There's a program under the SBA called the 8A program, the number 8, the letter A. And it was created for black firms back under a Republican administration in the 70s. to allow minority, particularly black firms, to be able to compete for set-aside contracts through the federal government. I participated in the program, and literally you were bidding on contracts in the millions of dollars, but you were only competing against other firms that were 8A. It's difficult to get in, and it should be, but it allowed you to grow your firm very quickly. The challenge was it wasn't really able to create generational wealth because it was 9 years. The Native American program is a lifetime program. Once you get in, you're in for the rest of your life. For the rest of us, we get in, we're in for 9 years, and then you graduate. If you look at Black enterprise today, there are always firms that are there a good 7, 8, 9 years, and then after that, they fall off the map because many of them were doing government contracts, and then when the program is expired during their 9 years, they have to retire or they have to move on to doing just regular federal contracts.
Which is one of the reasons why what I have been saying to black companies, you must prepare yourself for that. And there needs to be, I remember I spoke to the Department of Transportation. I'm going to pull my panels, so get them ready, folks. I spoke to the Department of Transportation, and I gave a speech. This was under Secretary Ray LaHood under Obama.
Ray LaHood, yeah.
And I talked about joint ventures. I talked about mergers and acquisitions. And I had a black woman who came up to me, and she said, for the last 2 years, my business partner and I have been preparing our company to sell. We have been preparing to sell. She said, it never dawned on us to go and buy. She said, after your speech, I immediately said to my partner, stop what we're doing. Let's not go in acquisition mode. So if we know there's a limit there, what should be happening, which requires black people to learn how to say, if I own 49 or 50 of 100 million, that's better than me owning 100 of 20 million. We then got to be able to say, look, you got to graduate, I got to graduate. If we actually merge our firms, we now are a much larger company, which means we now can compete for larger deals, and we're not out here trying to scrap. Unfortunately, we see very little merger and acquisition deals among black businesses because we're operating in silos, and I've been saying that in black media. I didn't want to launch this damn show myself. I went to every major black media company, Urban One, Black Enterprise, Essence, Byron Allen, went to all of them. Nobody wanted to partner.
So, Roland, my story is I was in the 8A program. I got to a fairly large scale number. We were doing about 7 million. I read a book by Reginald Lewis, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? I saw that he got there through acquisitions. I then spent 6 months. I bought my next firm. It was about 7 million. We were the largest black janitorial firm in the country because of acquisitions. This is the perfect time. We have lost 41% of our businesses, but that means that we cannot afford to lose the revenue in our communities. Many businesses, up to 47%, said that they will close within the next 60 to 90 days if they don't get some additional funding. And so for us, we're telling black firms now, let's look at doing joint ventures, mergers, and where it makes sense, acquisitions, so that we can continue to grow our communities and keep that revenue in our communities as well.
Julian Malvo, you're an economist. This issue, again, and look, I got some people, they're sitting here on YouTube. Look, you have been involved in the battle for reparations for a very long time, but that's a battle that's ongoing. When I'm trying to explain to folk, we got to go after the existing money right now. That means we've got to utilize our collective power. That means that we've got to have black organizations that are applying pressure, issuing public statements, calling folks to task, because we can go down the line. If we're getting 51 million out of 5 billion in media advertising, that's 1%. then we getting 1% over here in defense and 1% over here. Hell, you ain't gonna never be able to really grow. We've got to be saying, no. We need 15%, 20%, going after that. And here's the deal. If I ask for 20 and I get 10, hell, that's still 9 more than 1.
You know, Roland, there are two things going on here. Number one, it's both and. Reparations is a just cause. And, you know, I'm on NARC, the National African American Reparations Commission, and we believe that reparations is just cause. At the same time, there's something called good public policy that is separate and distinct from reparations. What do I mean by that? It is good public policy to make sure that African Americans have a foot in the game. It's good public policy. If we're 13.4% of the population, for us to have 13.4% of the contracts. Everything that you and Brother Busby have said make a lot of sense in terms of how the contracting pile is divided and who gets it. But that's very separate and distinct from reparations. See, there are people who believe, okay, well, we'll give you a few more percent of government contracts as reparations. No, it ain't. Reparations is about what you did. Good public policy is what you gonna do. And what we have to fight for both, but there may be different constituencies fighting for them. When we talk about how government funds are allocated, we know, as an example, the HBCU initiative took in under Bill Clinton, walked Black colleges through every agency to try to get them contracts. They were somewhat successful, not completely. Less of that under President Obama, unfortunately, and none of that under that orange man. But if we say that Harvard, Yale, Princeton basically get hundreds of millions of dollars in federal contracts, why shouldn't HBCUs get the same thing? So we have to be clear. There's a whole lot that Black people are owed. And there's a whole lot that good public policy would give us an equal stake in. And let's not get the two confused.
But Ron, what is required again is you've got to utilize, as far as I'm concerned, organizational infrastructure to be able to apply the pressure. So all of a sudden what then happens is you have the research, you have the numbers. Now all of a sudden they got to feel that pressure when the alphas and the deltas and the links and the Boule and the NAACP and the Urban League are sitting here pressuring people. And let me be real clear. I'm not talking about folks deciding to give the Urban League or the NAACP $100,000. See, let me be real clear to everybody out there. I don't want people to say, hey, well, we can just satisfy Ron's group if we just give the Black Chamber Inc. $100,000. No, damn that. What the bank should be saying is we're going to create a $100 or $500 million line of credit for businesses that are in the Black Chamber Inc. to be able to have a credit line to be able to float your business if you get a government contract, but you can't float it for 6 months because they pay on 180 days. See, so that's why I keep saying to Black people, stop playing ourselves small, Ron. That is, when we sitting here like, no, don't come to us with the table. Come to us with the money to buy the whole damn building.
Yeah. And so there are a couple of things that have happened, and I appreciate your passion as well. One, we've increased the 8A program from 9 years to 10 years. That has been impacted effective January the 7th. So kudos to this administration. The average 8A firm is doing somewhere around $10 million. So those Black companies now get that extra year of being able to drop those kinds of dollars. The second one, and I'm so glad you mentioned the payment terms, because the federal government is notorious for being a late pay. Under the Obama administration, in 2009, during the last recession, they implemented the prompt pay, which said that the government would pay its vendors within 15 days. So now if I get a contract February 1st, I can invoice you February 15th and make payroll by the end of the month, not now requiring me to have to go get one of those high interest rate loans that we are notorious having to pay twice the interest rate of our white peers just to be able to carry the float of the federal government. So a conversation that needs to be had in addition to education, housing, all of the others, not taking away anything from a reparation conversation as well. But the lane that we live in each and every day is really talking about an economic agenda for Black businesses and Black communities.
Ben. Ben, go ahead.
Well, one of the things that stood out when you were talking, Roland, was about the racially specific legislation. And I'm enjoying this conversation because I think one of the things we have to be mindful of is if we cannot get racially specific legislation due to the racially specific harm that this country has caused us continuously, then we're going to have to do it ourselves. We're going to have to band together, and we're going to have to link up. And we're discussing the influence of media, but also the money that could be spent in Black media and the money that could saturate the Black communities. We have a headwind. We have such a strong headwind, not only in terms of funding in general, not only funding from the federal government, but just support in general. And so we have to start crossing lines with each other and connecting and mergers and acquisitions so that we can survive, because there's really no way we're going to be able to push the envelope on issues like reparations if all Black media is defunct.
Roland, if I could just jump in for a second.
Real quick, 'cause I need to go to Avis.
Okay, just a second. The whole notion of race-neutral legislation is flawed. We don't have race-neutral lives. And so when folks talk about race neutrality, what they're talking about is discrimination. That's all.
But the reality is, Avis, we're dealt a hand. And look, the bottom line is, it would be nice if, again, Democrats had focused on the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, Republicans now have a 63 majority. That's understanding the three branches of government. If you don't have the courts, then they are the ones who interpret the rules and the laws. Avis, go ahead.
Absolutely. And hopefully we'll take another look at that to see what we can do to potentially expand the court to put things right. But let me just also say, I'm really enjoying this conversation around what are some solutions? Because the fact that we have lost 40% or more of Black businesses is completely, it's just horrible. It is tragic. It is sad. And so I'm very interested in this conversation around the acquisitions piece and how that can maybe help some of these people who have businesses that are on the brink in that 30 to 60 day period, but maybe those business owners could get a lump sum, or maybe they could be acquired and stay on in some sort of acting role. So my question really that I'd like to raise here is, how is there anything that's being put in place? And maybe this is your organization, but how are we connecting the two? I'm sure that, there are lots of business owners out here who are in a moment where they would like to be considered at least to have that as an option to potentially have their organization acquired rather than completely losing everything and having to start from, ground zero. How can they be linked to other Black businesses who are in a better financial position to potentially acquire those institutions?
But before Ron speaks, let me say this here: you got to have something to acquire.
Yeah.
Again, seriously, the problem that if we start, and Ron, you can definitely speak to this. If you actually do the analysis of the 2.6 million, I go back to it. 2.5 million have one employee. So in essence, they're working themselves.
Yeah.
So when you start saying, okay, we're going to merge or acquire, what am I actually getting? When you do a merger and acquisition, you got to bring, or do you have existing contracts? Is there real estate? Is there equipment? What assets are there? The reality, Ron, unfortunately for a lot of when you only have 100,000 Black-owned businesses with more than one employee, it makes it difficult. I told somebody this the other day. When we launched this show on September 4th, 2018, with 7 people, on day one, we were in the top 5% of all Black businesses in America. Yeah. On day one. We finished year one, we generated some $600,000 in revenue. We're in the top 3% of Black business in America. And so that's Ron, that's part of the problem. That's why I keep saying, People say, why do you keep saying we don't need more black businesses? I said, we don't. We need black businesses with capacity. We need larger black businesses. We get a whole bunch of singles. I need more with 10, 20, 30, 50 employees, and then revenue that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 million. If we keep got singles, then when COVID hits, we're susceptible because we got nothing to sustain ourselves, and 41% get wiped away. Ron, go ahead. Final comment.
A couple of things. One, for those firms that are in need, that are looking to get support, we're looking to merge, looking to acquire, onboard your firm at byblack.us, byblack.us. So that's where you can find out about other companies that are looking to do the same thing. Secondly, there are funds that are available. And Roland, when we asked our businesses around the country what they needed, most of them said customers. And so many of the mom or pop businesses that we talk about may not have the revenue, but they have expertise in areas and they may have customers. And so if you're a good distributor and someone else is a good marketer and someone else is a good producer and someone else is a great writer, let's build that as a consortium to now create a business that could perhaps have the size and the scale that both corporate America is in need of, our communities, as well as our needs as Black people. Again, I'm not pushing people away from starting new businesses. But at the same time, the other opportunity is there are white firms that are going out of business, Hispanic firms and Asian businesses that are going out of businesses. We should also look there. And then the last thing, there are great programs that are out here for Black-owned businesses that we aren't taking advantage of, i.e. Organizations like DoorDash are saying, hey, if you're a Black-owned restaurant, we'll waive the fees for delivery charges. Well, guess what? They said 375% has growth in restaurants. But when you look to see who's actually taking advantage of the Black-owned programs, it's Hispanic-owned restaurants. It's pizza parlors that are owned by other folk outside of our community. It's Asian restaurants. It's Thai restaurants. They aren't Black-owned restaurants. There are programs that are out here to try to help our businesses. We've got to make sure that if it's the U.S. Black Chamber, if it's Roland Martin's show, we've got to make sure that our businesses are finding those opportunities to be able to continue to survive so we can get through this as well.
And again, let me say this again for people who thought I was joking. I understood the reality of trying to start a business because, first of all, I already had a media company. I knew that. So my deal is when I went to existing Black-owned businesses, Black-owned media companies, saying, I have what y'all don't have. What I'm doing, none of y'all got. And each one, nothing. No response, nothing. And can't none of them deny we ain't had a conversations. And so, fine. I went ahead and built it. And in 2 years, we're far ahead away than what any of them are doing in terms of digital audio or video. The argument that I'm making is that we're seeing this in so many other sectors, Ron, that what we're doing is we're actually not building smart. We're not building smart. So we got we got all these silos versus saying, wait a minute, hold up. If I'm doing 5 or 7 million with the Defense Department, but there are 3 or 4 other Black companies and they're doing 2 to 3 million or 5 million. Well, hell, if we say, why don't we merge this sucker amongst the 4 of us, and now we've got a $40 million company, we now are in a position. But here's the deal. Here's the rub, Ron. And we're gonna get real. Folk then gotta say, my ego has gotta accept I don't have CEO on it. All I know is this here. Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world, and he don't own 51% of Amazon.
Come on.
I would say.
Final comment, Ron. Go ahead.
Oh.
Yeah, Avis, you were in the room in 2016 when we all got there, and it was 68 organizations, and we met for 2 days trying to establish the priorities for Black America.
Yes,
And we came out with 68 priorities. And the U.S. Black Chamber said, I don't want to be involved in that, because if there's that, 68 priorities is not a priority.
Precisely.
The U.S. Black Chamber is in one lane, and that is about business. I'll end with this. The last 4.5, 5 years, we heard a hell of a lot about making America great again. And we say, yes, we Black folk want America to be great as well. But in order for there to be a great America, there must be a great Black America. In order for there to be a great Black America, you got to have great Black businesses. And in order for there to be great Black businesses, you need great Black chambers, and you need great Black customers. We need for you to shop with Black folk, to spend with Black folk, to support Black folk, to support Black media, and know that your voices are being carried, especially under this administration. We are going to hold them accountable. We want you to hold us accountable. But most importantly, as Roland's been saying, it is about collaboration. No one can do this effectively by itself. When we go to corporate America and say, spend more money with Black folk, they say either we can't find them or they don't have the size and the scale. We can eliminate these conversations by collaborating with each other, and that's both with nonprofits, for businesses, as well as the voices and conversations that are being had across the country.
Ron Busby, U.S. Black Chambers Inc. I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, then. This is, I just want, pull the panel back up. I really want folks to understand, the folks out here who are watching, I need people to understand why we are doing this. I had somebody, who was this? Let me go call this person out. Person says, and I'm really laughing at this here because it really is hilarious. This person, what is it? Angela Mitchell. Roland, you're being self-centered. The show is called Roland Martin Unfiltered. That's first. I'm using my experience as an example being of the problem. How can I talk about building capacity, mergers and acquisitions, and joint ventures if I don't explain to the audience how I literally try to do what I am saying I do? When you called me and said, hey man, we're trying to sit here and build this show, and we want to get the word out, I was like, all right, we'll put you on the panel. I'm not losing anything by adding you to the panel, exposing you to my audience, and people might say, oh, well, hell, Ben got a morning show. I'm going to go check his show out. That's the whole point. I was on an 80-minute call with Adrienne Bankert, who's with ABC, who's got a book and she's doing stuff, and I'm sharing expertise with her. It doesn't hurt anybody. But we also got to be honest within our community is that there are Black people in our community who refuse to partner, but when they sit on panels and they tweet and post on Facebook and Instagram how we need to be about the collective, I don't want to hear nobody Black talk about the collective if your ass ain't practicing what you preaching. Ben, go ahead.
Ego is a hell of a drug, Roland, and for us to miss opportunities because we can't set our own personal ego aside, right? This is Roland Martin Unfiltered. Thanks for having me on. I'll be back anytime you want me. Because the fact of the matter is like just this collaboration here, you allowing me to be here is a tremendous benefit to me. And so I'm grateful for it, right? At the same time, it's like, it's symbiotic. Like it's the ability to work with other people and bring your gifts and your talents to bear that really helps us to move the ball forward in so many ways. And so I have found, I mean, and you know, we've been talking for years about this, like there's just so many missed opportunities in Black media specifically because we weren't able to get those collaborations. And honestly, if we can't survive America, white supremacy and capitalism alone, we got to clan up. We got to squad up.
I got somebody here, Julia, and look, and I ain't got a problem. Y'all know, I'm just gonna say it. I got several people who keep posting on my channel. Roland, why don't you partner with Tavis? Because in the last 20 years, Tavis ain't done shit with me. No, I mean, no, see, here's why I need y'all to understand. I need everybody here to understand. I have not been afraid to work with anybody black. But Tavis ain't never invited me to State of Black America. In fact, I was booked on Tavis's TV show, on his radio show, then was unbooked. I never did Tavis's television show. But I didn't hold grudges. When Tavis's MLK book came out, I welcomed him onto my TV One show. Tavis had never, ever booked me on anything ever. But see, I ain't tripping. I told y'all last week, Reverend Sharpton ain't never invited me to his show. Joanne Reed has never invited me to her show. The first weekend show, the daily show, the second weekend show, or her second daily show. Karen Finney had her show, MSNBC, never invited me. Melissa Harris Perry never invited me. But when their books came out, I had them on, so I ain't tripping. But what I am saying, Julian, is that if black folks do not learn to set egos aside and realize you're not going to be able to do what John H. Johnson did, building Johnson Publishing Company. And in fact, let me go ahead and say that John H. Johnson was arrogant as hell and not helping other black people. He tried to put Essence out of business. It's in Ed Lewis's book. We got to understand, Rupert Murdoch sold Fox Entertainment to Disney for $70 billion. $70 billion. He had no problem sitting with Bob Iger. All I'm saying to our people, we can stay small by having small minds, and it's all about, I don't like so-and-so. But I would love for a black company to be built and sold for $70 billion. Will never happen if we stay small, Julian.
Well, you know, there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone rather. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that that's really what you're saying, what Busby has been saying, what other folks are saying about black business. I mean, 90% of our black-owned businesses have one O-N-E employee. So they're basically, self-employed. Avis has a great concept. She talks about the solopreneur versus the entrepreneur, where the solopreneur is somebody, they just doing their thing. The entrepreneur is someone who's really running stuff. Now, what we have to do in the African-American community is really figure out whether we want to be solopreneurs so that when we die, that's the end of it, or entrepreneurs so that we have a legacy to leave. Because if we're talking about generational wealth or other things, we have to be talking about what we're leaving other people. And I don't think that we talk about that enough. And I think Brother Man said ego is a drug. Ego is a drug. And we see it in our community every day. And psychologists and others can explain it. We've been denied so much and we need so much attention. Hell, black people, get over it. I mean, really. As we look at what's going on and going ahead, the Department of Defense, Roland, does not want to do business with a company that has less than $1 million in assets. It's just not efficient. So we need to figure out how 10 of these companies can get together. In terms of contracting, same thing. You're talking about construction contracts. Nobody wants to, 10 companies, that's too much administrative costs for a company. So you want to get people to come together. But that's about us. We have to deal with that. But Roland Martin, let me just say this to you. You have done amazing work and need amazing credit for creating an ingenuous platform without the support of the big guys. You've done it yourself. And so kudos to you.
Well, here's the deal. I did it because the people responded. And that's what, look, I told y'all, when I turned TV One down, Alfred Liggins asked to speak to me in his office. This was, I think, March 6, 2018. And he said to me, it's hard starting your own media company. And I was like, your mama started a media company. No, with one station. Kathy Hughes started. There is no urban. I need everybody to understand. There is no Urban One without that one small black station in D.C., WOL. There is no Urban One. So you got to start somewhere. I offered. I just need people to understand. I'm not saying stuff to y'all just for the hell of it. I am being as transparent as possible. When I got wind they were trying to cancel News One Now, I sat there and I said, what's our biggest problem? We can't build the audience because we don't have enough, we're not in enough homes. I then said, how could we stream? We couldn't stream our show online. Then there was a show we were doing Dish Nation. And I said, well, how are we able to broadcast Dish Nation on TV One, but I see Dish Nation on digital? So I went to TV One and I said, I have a solution. Why don't I take over ownership of News One Now, license the show to you, which gets around your cable contracts that allow for you to stream, that allow for you to license content and still be streamed digitally. I literally said, we can grow News One Now as a digital show, generate more revenue and a bigger viewership. And then what we do is we do a back-end deal where you handle all of my back-end stuff, and then we do a revenue share and your sales teams handle the deal. They never responded. Then they said, I literally sent that offer. I need everybody to understand, I sent that offer in November of 2017. The day when I was told the show was canceled, it was because I kept pushing like, are we gonna get an answer to my question? So I was told they were gonna take the show from a 5-day week to a weekly show. Then they said, no, we're gonna end it all completely. The show was costing them $5 million. I knew for a fact how to produce that exact same show for $3 million. I knew how to produce it. But they didn't want to do that. When I launched Roland Martin Unfiltered, I gave them a proposal to join me as a partner. Nobody responded. So what I'm saying to everybody who's watching, I have done what I'm telling y'all to do. But what I'm saying is when other folk don't want to do it, then you just go ahead and build. You don't sit here and wait. You don't go, man, it sure be nice. One of the things that we do is we wait for consensus. We go, man, if we can get all the black organizations together, I ain't waiting on everybody. What Ron just say? All them black groups met in 2016, came up with 68. You can't do a damn thing with 68. It ain't gonna work. 3 priorities. We have the ability to change the trajectory of Black America, but it is going to require Black America to properly use its assets, to set its ego aside, to learn to work together. And here's the deal. If you don't like somebody, and it's just, and I'm real clear, somebody said, Roland, get Boyce Watkins. Hell no. Boyce Watkins would never be on this show, ever.
Lord.
Oh,
No. I'm trying to explain to y'all. But Boyce knows why he's never going to be on this show. See, so I'm real clear. It ain't going to work. If I'm not going to work with you, I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to work with you. But what we better understand is we will never be able to build successful black businesses if all of us are living in silos. It will not work. Coming up next, we're going to talk HBCUs in Maryland. Are they finally there to getting the $500 million or more that's next to Roland Martin Unfiltered? What still impacts and what creates change is when we mobilize. When we say we're not powerless, and if I get with you and you and you, and all of a sudden it's 10, then 20, then 100, then 500, then 2,000, then 5,000, all of a sudden you have mobilized people, that creates that voting power. And then when you throw somebody out, it catches their attention real quick.
But not only just that, they have to know what it is that they're standing for. Because if you have friends that talks politics, then of course we're having a decent conversation and I'm being educated at the same time. But if my group of people are not talking about that, then I still don't know. So I can unite with you, and then I'm making sure that you have the voice, but what if you don't have the courage to speak? So you're still getting a group of people together that don't know how to do nothing.
What still impacts.
For a moment, put aside your fear. Think back to who you were on that first day at the Capitol. You felt the sense of history, patriotism, the majesty of a sacred place, the knowledge that you could make history. Now, your legacy is on the line. You know Trump's mob seized the Capitol on his orders, a violent insurrection to hold power. You were saved from assault and death only by providence. You know the blood Trump's mob spilled that day will be on your hands, souls, and legacies if you fail to act. Your defenses of Trump are hollow, cynical, and desperate. We know you're afraid. The vote will be the hardest and most important of your life. Convict Trump. Save America. America is watching.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Carl Payne pretended to be Roland Martin. Holla!
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
The Maryland Senate unanimously passed a measure for a $577 million settlement to end a long-running lawsuit involving the state's 4 HBCUs, Coppin State University, Morgan State University, Bowie State University, and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. On Friday, the Senate voted 47-0 on the bill. It will now go to the House of Delegates. Now, you remember, the bill passed last year, but Maryland Governor Larry Hogan vetoed it, saying they couldn't afford it. But he didn't veto the bill and provided funding for the racetrack in Baltimore. Now, in 2006, a lawsuit was filed that alleged Maryland underfunded its 4 HBCUs and also basically allowed white institutions in Maryland to duplicate programming at the HBCUs. Well, in 2013, a federal judge found the state violated the Constitution by maintaining a dual and segregated education system. Question is, will the governor veto it again, and will the legislature override his veto? Joining us right now is Delegate Charles Sitnor. Doc, how you doing?
Brother, how you doing? I'm doing well, thank you.
All right, so I have been covering this story for years. I've had the lead attorneys on, the lawyers committee. I've had Maryland delegates on. We had the rally last year at the state capitol in Annapolis pushing this, galvanizing Black Greeks and others. And so do you think this is finally the year that this is going to not only get passed, but if Hogan vetoes it again, then all of a sudden that we're going to be able to have this bill get come into law and the schools get that money?
You know, this is the year. I will tell you that in sponsoring Senate Bill 1 and Speaker Jones sponsoring HB 1, we're going to do this. Last week, when the Senate voted, as you noted, 47-0, I believe that sent a very strong message that the governor cannot ignore. You're talking about a bipartisan vote that the Senate had, and I mean it was amazing. Honestly, going into this session, I did not think that we would get another unanimous vote because I saw some of those same arguments being played out in the paper, and we just thought that some of our colleagues might get behind the governor's response and not be supportive this year. Thankfully, that's not what happened.
What people don't realize is that this has been a problem of Democratic governors and Republican governors. This is not partisan at all. This has been about restoration and what's fair. Hogan drew a line saying, what was it, tops 100 million, nothing more? But even during the lawsuit, during the trial, an expert testified that really the number should have been $2 billion for these HBCUs. And so, because of how they were impacted by duplication. And so, what he was talking about was $100 million over 10 years shared by 4 HBCUs.
Correct.
Really, dude? Really? That's that's $2.5 million a year for each college.
And I think that number, that $1 to $2 billion number that came out in the lawsuit, really helped us to make the argument to some of the colleagues that, look, we're facing a $1 to $2 billion remedy, when in fact, if we just pay $577 over the course of 10 years, we can get this done. I mean, it's a deal, and they agreed. I mean, and one thing that I learned last year after that vote was that you can't take any votes for granted. I mean, so I made certain to talk with our Republican colleagues for support, and they did it again. So I was extremely happy about that.
Well, look, I'm glad it passed the Senate. We're waiting on the House. And again, if Governor Hogan and that Lieutenant Governor is Rutherford, Boyd Rutherford, HBCU graduate who had the audacity to challenge me there was an award ceremony for the Minority Supplier Development Agency there in Maryland, telling me I didn't have my facts together. I was like, well, fine, bring your behind on my show. He didn't want to come on the show. I think it's a shame that he has not been a more forceful advocate for HBCUs, considering he graduated from one in Howard University.
I understand. But I'll tell you this. So the Senate bill, it is now in the House in appropriations. HB1 passed appropriations, and I believe it's going to second reader onto the House floor. So it's moving in the right direction. And one of the things that you had noted earlier or questioned, once we get this passed, if the governor does try to veto it again, we're doing this early enough in the session that we won't need a special session to override this veto.
There you go. All right, then. Delegate Sitton, I certainly appreciate it. Keep me abreast of what happens.
Will do. Thank you, brother.
Thanks a bunch. Appreciate it. This right here, Avis, is what I'm talking about when I say Black Power. Maryland has the largest Black caucus of any state in America. One of the things that I said last year when this was going on, I said to them, y'all whole deal should be, ain't a damn thing moving through the Maryland legislature unless we deal with this. I said, y'all should shut down everything. The reality is this here. The Congressional Black Caucus can do the exact same thing in D.C. Mm-hmm. The CBC has the largest caucus out of any on the Democratic side. If the CBC says we ain't for it, it ain't moving. I'm glad to see, and that's why this is called HB1. It's the first bill. It's the first bill, and I'm glad they see them doing it. And I think, look, they're going to override. If Hogan vetoes it, they got the votes to override it, and then those Black colleges are going to get that $577 million.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, this is what Black Power looks like. This is why voting matters. This is why voting blocks are important. And so here's the thing, exactly as you've alluded to, we've really got to get to the point of political maturity where we are willing to play hardball. I'm as willing as the next person to, quote unquote, trying to reason with people to an extent that it makes sense. But when you're acting like you don't have sense, and that's the end for the reasoning, that's when the reasoning needs to come to an end. And that's when you need to exert power. And so I'm really glad that it looks like they are actually doing this here, because this is a bill and is a debt that is long overdue, and it's about time that it finally gets paid.
Again, putting that pressure on is critically important. And one of the things that we did, Julian, you, of course, President Emerita of Bennett College, when we were last year, when this came up, I sent text messages and emails to every Black fraternity and sorority saying, yo, get your members, putting pressure on folk. I said, they need to feel the heat. They need to feel every single chapter. They need to feel every single one of these graduates. This is where one of the things that I have been saying when I talk about this Black economic justice is that we have significant black institutions with numbers. We can rattle off organizations. The problem is that our black organizations are so insular that they are not using their power to flex and press folks externally. I said, so if Alpha is only concerned about the walls of Alpha, if Deltas are only concerned about the walls of Delta, if the Sigmas and the Sigma Gamma Rho and Zetas and Iotas and Omegas and Kappas and AKAs, and then the Links, the Guardsmen, the Girlfriends, the Boule, then we start talking about the Kojic, the AME, the CME. We got all these, the Prince Hall Masons, Eastern Star. We got all these groups. I'm arguing they have got to be able to use their power to send a letter to the governor saying, you better move on this, or guess what? We're going to drop 1,000 Masons on the state capitol. We're going to drop 1,000 Deltas, 1,000 AKAs. So I'm like, what's the point of having all of these organizations if we're not using them to advance the interests of black people?
Roland, I couldn't agree with you more. I do think that some of our organizations are not insular, that we do, I speak for my sorority, we do reach outside our walls. When I was president at Bennett College, the Delta chapters in North Carolina were extraordinarily helpful. There was a couple pieces of legislation that they really weighed in on that we were able to deal with. And I know that the other sororities and fraternities do the same thing. But it's not enough. Here's the deal. Historically black colleges and universities have been systematically underfunded. When you look at a University of Maryland and you look at a Morgan State, where our brother president there is doing such an amazing job, graduating more black women with PhDs in engineering than any place else. So, you look at that and you look at the results, but you don't see the investment. So our presidents are running from pillar to post to try to raise outside money because the state does not value HBCUs. The $570 million, it's okay. It's okay. The billion to $2 billion that is truly owed would be better. But it's an opportunity for folks to build their endowments, to increase their scholarships, to attract good faculty, new faculty, and good faculty. So I'm excited about it. And if Larry Hogan has the temerity to veto this, if he has a nerve to veto this, I hope that folks stomp all over his behind. I had to just stop there. I don't cuss as much as you do. Or I do.
Yeah, right.
But in any case, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And he wants to put himself out there as this bipartisan thing who wants to be president, and you can't support HBCUs? Get your hat, Maryland farmer, and go somewhere. He had better not veto that. And if he does, I hope that the whole big old feet of everybody in Maryland stomp on his hind part.
Well, that's why you're making a big issue, Ben, because the reality is Boyd Rutherford plans on running for governor during the next election. And I'm sorry, if you couldn't stand with Maryland's HBCUs for the full amount of money, you don't deserve anybody black voting for you.
There you go.
Roland, that's the truth. And I think that's the vantage point that we have to come from going forward. America has been saved by black people time and time and again, right? Not just on the federal level, but on the state level. And for them to even consider, first of all, it's woefully insufficient, but it is something. And so if they're even considering vetoing this, I think black folks, we just really need to bring the full force of black power down on every level of this government, because they literally cannot obtain power without black people.
So again, y'all, to everybody watching, you watching me on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, y'all gonna hear me saying this a whole lot. How you use collective action to be able to move things in our community. When we start talking about dollars, when we start talking about pension funds, we start talking about advertising dollars. I'm gonna tell you right now that's how it can get done. The model is there. King laid it out in Operation Breadbasket. Reverend Leon Sullivan gave it to him, and before it became Operation Breadbasket. So we've done these things before. We've simply got to have folks who are willing to actually put their neck on the line, and they're not even really putting their neck on the line. It's just doing what's right, because this is about actually black people. All right, folks, a couple of stories before I go to my next break. Mayor Lori Lightfoot and the Chicago Teachers Union leadership reached a tentative reopening deal over the weekend to reopen schools for families seeking in-person instruction. Lightfoot says under the tentative framework, the first group of students and staff will return February 11th. Subsequent groups will be staggered, returning to school between February 22nd and March 8th. The deal is contingent upon the union approval involving a vote of its 25,000 members. Union officials have indicated that a vote could take place late today or tomorrow. On Friday, Rochester's former police chief, Laurent Singletary, said he didn't see anything egregious in the police body cam video that captured 41-year-old Daniel Prude's arrest. On March 23, 2020, Rochester, New York police officers were responding to a mental health call when they encountered Prude. The 41-year-old was naked and experiencing a mental health episode after ingesting PCP. Responding officers then detained Prude, placing a spit hood over his head and had him sit in the middle of the street while naked. Officers were seen in the body cam video holding him down for approximately 2 minutes until he stopped breathing. Prude was then taken to a hospital where he later died. Singletary was fired by Mayor Lovely Warren after the body camera footage was made public. The city of Rochester released a statement Friday saying the former police chief, quote, downplayed what occurred from the very beginning through today and believes that neither he nor anyone in the Rochester Police Department did anything wrong. Despite Singletary's claims that officers didn't use excessive force, the Rochester County Medical Examiner ruled Prude's death a homicide, and the grand jury is investigating the 41-year-old deaths. This is what happened, folks, even when you have a black police chief who defends the blue and not black. Got to go to break. We come back. More on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Actually, before we do that, let me do this right here. Folks, I told you why it's important for us to have our own voice, us driving our own messages. Our goal is to have 20,000 of our fan club, folks who follow us, support Roland Martin Unfiltered. So we want you to join our Bring the Funk fan club. But I've said that many of you, if you give to us on YouTube, we only get 55% of what is given on YouTube. But if you give that money to us directly, we get the full 100%. So YouTube is a revenue share. We get 55, they get 45. So if you want to support us, please do so via Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal.me/R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo.com/RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. All right, folks, got to go to break. Back in a moment.
The U.S. uses more than half the world's healthcare resources, but we're ranked 43rd in the world for life expectancy. How did we get here? The political determinants of health include how we structure relationships, how we distribute resources, and how we administer power. What does this look like at the individual level? Take Jessica, for example. Jessica's 19. Her dad relies on mental health and substance use programs, but when these programs get cut, he becomes too difficult to live with. She leaves home. The neighborhood Jessica can afford has no grocery stores, limited public transit, and limited health care. To save money, policymakers changed the water source to a more polluted river. Jessica has a minimum wage job with no health insurance at a convenience store that offers free snacks while she works, which she takes advantage of because they're free. When Jessica becomes pregnant, she can't get health insurance because pregnancy is a pre-existing condition. And she doesn't realize that the salty, fatty snacks that she eats at work are bad for her baby. Jessica gets a ride to the closest clinic for a prenatal appointment, but the doctor is rushed and rude to her. She doesn't go back. Jessica develops preeclampsia and almost dies during her son's premature birth. He's born with cognitive defects because of poor diet, contaminated water source, and lack of access to prenatal care. As he grows up, Jessica learns that her school district doesn't have the resources to accommodate her son's special needs. He drops out after 8th grade and will repeat the cycle of poverty. Through Jessica's story, we begin to see how social determinants, environmental determinants, healthcare determinants, and behavioral health determinants take their toll on our lives. And Jessica's story shows us how political determinants supersede personal responsibility. Equity in our policies is a process and an outcome. Change comes when we can identify political champions at all levels and figure out how our most pressing issues align with their policies. For more actionable solutions to close the health gap, read The Political Determinants of Health by Daniel E. Dawes.
Hi, everybody. This is Jonathan Nelson.
Hi, this is Cheryl Lee Ralph, and you are watching Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
This month is American Heart Month, where the nation focuses on heart disease, the leading cause of death in the United States. Although it's a leading cause of death for all Americans, minority groups face a greater risk than their white counterparts. For example, African Americans can develop heart disease at a younger age. According to the Heart Foundation, 48% of African American women have heart disease and 44% of black men have some form of heart disease. Research has found that even among the growing middle and upper class black community, the rate of heart disease among black Americans is still greater than in white Americans who have a comparable socioeconomic status. Joining us now to discuss this is Coach Jesse Thompson, nutritionist and founder of the Detox Now, and Stephanie Johnson, Vice President of Communications and Product Strategies with the American Medical Association. Glad to have both of you. Stephanie, I want to start with you. When we talk about strategies, when we talk about where to begin, obviously, typically for folks, this actually develops later in life. And so if we start doing things much earlier, it certainly helps us later. And so for folks who are 50 plus right now, what can they do now? And then we'll talk about folks who are much younger.
So we should be doing everything that we, thank you for having me on the show, first and foremost. I really appreciate being here. But we should be doing everything that we can to be proactive. For so long, people in our community tend to deal with episodic care. So you're presenting with some pain, some ailment, and then you tend to go see a physician or what have you. But being proactive is huge. And it's not just the 50 and older. We have nearly 50% of women, Black women over the age of 20, right, that have heart disease. That is not a good statistic. And we need to be doing all that we can to be able to support Black women. And that is part of the work that I get to lead up at the AMA.
Jesse?
Yeah, so the key thing for us, when I was here last time, we talked about fibroids and how stress was a key determining factor as to why Black women disproportionately experience them. Well, it's no surprise, Roland, that actually stress is one of the differentiating factors when it comes to heart disease as well, all right? So this is actually why I'm partnering with the Release the Pressure campaign that Stephanie it's part of her brainchild, actually, because when we look at how we as a people live, we're pursuing success, and this thing is it's like a pressure cooker, this life that we're living, all right? And when we look at whether it's work, love, relationships, everything is on this grind. And think about life being like that pressure cooker. Without a release valve, it's gonna explode, right, Roland?
Yep.
So for us, when we look at the key things that are going to make the differentiators, it is the things that specifically create more time in between the decisions that we make, the things on our schedule, being intentional about actually cultivating self-care into our love, our work, our wellness, our pursuits overall, and looking at it as not something that we do as a byproduct or as something we get to do once in a while, but we do it as something that is intentionally a differentiating factor in terms of our success to create sustainable success in our lives overall, right? So that's been a key thing here with the Release the Pressure program that Stephanie created. I'd love for her to talk a little bit more about that.
One of the things that Stephanie, I do want you to speak to is, so I saw this comment just a moment ago. this guy who is Elijah James? Get off your asses, exercise, work out, and stop eating slave food. It's simple. Well, the reality is it's not simple. See, and I think people who say that, oh no, it's simple. No, actually, it's not, because there are a significant number of things impacting us that are also hereditary. Okay, that we're born with, and you're not even understanding what your history is. Two, if you're living in areas where you have food deserts, it's not that simple. If you don't have the transportation to be able to go to a place to buy fresh fruits and vegetables, you can't augment or change your diet. And so, absolutely, you have personal responsibility in terms of what you can do. But we also have to factor in there are external factors that have nothing to do with your ability to maybe just get up and do it yourself. There are other things that have to also change in our communities.
Yes. Absolutely right. There are structural barriers that we have to overcome in order for us to have better outcomes. And that's what Release the Pressure is all about. Release the Pressure is personal for me because my mom suffered from congestive heart failure, and she passed away from it last year. I actually had my sister pass away 3 weeks prior to my mom from stroke. So it is something that has been prevalent in my family, and I have wanted to be proactive in ensuring that more women don't have to succumb to heart disease, that they can be proactive. And you're right, and Coach Jesse alluded to this, all of these other factors that overlay just our every day-to-day day living as Black people that contributes to the stress, like this pressure cooker that she alluded to. So it is important that we do the things that allow our, that we take steps towards self-care, and we take time each day to release the pressures that bog us down. I watched my mom work 2 to 3 jobs. Rarely did I get her to see her doing some of the things that I incorporate into my life now so that my daughter can see me do those things. Counting the 10, relaxing, meditation, going for walks, but frequently taking time for self-care and teaching my daughter now that self-care is an act of self-love.
Let's go to our panel for questions. I'll start with Julianne Malvo.
So you talked about the pressure cooker that so many of us, Black women, Black people, live in. Much of it is external. It's not internal. Much of it is about the environment in which we live. How can we empower ourselves to change that environment, or at least to survive in an environment that we know is hostile?
I love that question because, it's really about squatting up, in terms of getting who our tribe is, who we surround ourselves with, and the kind of practices that we build into our everyday lives. All right. Because what you said is key. External factors are going to happen, and they are going to be the same, right? Like I listened to the piece earlier about political social determinants and all the things that affect our environment. And we do have to collaborate, galvanize, and activate our voices to exert our power and make change to that. But you know what we can change every day? Every day, we can be very intentional about the toxicity we allow in our lives, everything from relationships to the food that we're eating to specifically, when we look at the thing that we're doing this Saturday, we're having an event called the Galentine's Day National Virtual Vision Board Party. And, everybody's done vision boarding at the top of the year, right? But the key thing is, have you actually thought about your life with regards to building self-care into it? That means saying, wait a minute, what do I need to take off my plate? Because the truth is, it's taking me away from my long-term goals, not just in terms of success, right? But in terms of taking care of my heart health. Am I building the time into my calendar to actually go see my doctor for wellness visits? Am I building the time into my calendar to have that what we say self-love as a form of resistance, where I'm having time with my girlfriends, right? Or my family members specifically, to build that care into my relationships. So it sounds like it's very minor, but actually when you look at it, most people live their lives on this have to conveyor belt, and they feel like it's nonstop. And what we're saying is you have more power than you think. when I was here last time, I talked about the social determinants and how 80% of our health is actually determined by 20% of the things, right? It's determined by the things that a lot of we have control in, the things we have control over. And it's about harnessing that power.
Next question. Ben.
Yeah, my question really hinges on this reality of being Black in America. James Baldwin said to be Black and to be conscious is to be at a constant state of rage. How do you recommend we process that if we don't have, of course, exercise and eating right, but just in general, what techniques do you recommend? Because we're consuming a lot of Black death and a lot of Black violence against Black people. And I'm going to be honest with you, it has taken a toll on me. So I'm asking for a friend, and I'm that friend.
Stephanie, do you want to jump in here?
Absolutely. We are not immune to what is happening to us extrinsically. There are things that are going on in our bodies when we see things on national television, like the death or the murder of George Floyd, when we saw the insurrection on the Capitol. Those are things that you cannot compartmentalize. I remember what happened where I was in the middle of work when the insurrection happened, and I remember people wanting me to get on a call just to go about my everyday meeting, and me saying, wait a minute, time out, I cannot take, I can't take this call. There is something happening on the Capitol my young daughter doesn't understand. Heck, I don't understand it as an adult. So I'm going to have to take time. I'm going to have to pause. I'm going to have to process. I'm going to have to pray. I'm going to have to get on the phone with some of my squad, and I'm going to have to talk through this thing. But I could feel myself getting elevated and elevated. So yes, you have to take time when matters are happening, that you don't ignore them, but things can wait until you give yourself time to show yourself some love. Coach Jesse, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes that time includes, fasting from social media for maybe it could be a 24-hour period. It can also include scheduling time with a therapist, okay? Because the truth is we are all going through a massive trauma. Okay. And I'm not trying to generalize it. It's very real, especially as Black people in America, as you said, right? So we have to say, hey, wait a minute, I have to schedule time for me. So it goes back now to that schedule, right? Am I going to value what I need to reset, what I need to just give myself that pause button, right? To take, whether it's deep breathing or take my mind off of this and watch something that's just going to edify me, be in a conversation with people who are just it could be crying together. It could be, talking about, like, sometimes I will, who's a release valve for me sometimes? I'll text Roland. Roland, is this not true? And he'll just say, white people. And I'll say, that's it. It's the truth. And you have to have that squad of people that you laugh because you know it's real, right? You have to have that squad of people that you say, you know what? This is part of my resistance, is my self-care, and saying, you know what? I need to take time for me. And what that looks like is everything from, today I am clearing my schedule. And I'm only going to do what's the Pareto principle? 80% of the things have 20% of the impact. I'll pray in the morning, like, what's going on with me today, God? Prayer is a big deal. What do I need today to fulfill the purpose you have for me today? And sometimes that means clearing my calendar, right? Clearing the calendar and saying, today, I just need to listen to some Bishop Jakes. I just need to listen to, I was listening, in fact, Roland yesterday, I was listening to that Tyler Perry masterclass that he posted from the NABJ event. And that was just feeding me. Because sometimes we have to pause the thing that's assaulting us, which is unfortunately life, right? And we have to hit that pause button and say, okay, I need to do what is going to actually feed me right now, what is actually going to build me up right now, because I've had a lot of withdrawals. And I feel like I'm literally in this steady, what do you call it, transfusion, and nobody's giving back. I got to take time to give back to me.
Yes.
Avis.
What's happening to Black people's health has got to stop, which is why we form Release the Pressure. And it's a group of us, right? The American Medical Association, you have the American Heart Association, we have the Association of Black Cardiologists, we have the National Medical Association of Minority Health Institute, we are serious about changing health outcomes in Black communities for the better. COVID-19 has helped shed a light on what happens to individuals when they have these underlying pre-existing conditions, and we need to focus. So that's what Release the Pressure is all about, bringing resources, not just a campaign slogan, but resources to Black women so that they have things available to them, putting them in close proximity to physicians of color so that they see them and have access. So that's all so important because we are on a trajectory toward change. And that means better health care for ourselves and those we love. And that's what Release the Pressure really is all about.
Well, I got like one person, Tennessee Strong on YouTube, said I'm 39, had a double bypass 2 years ago. So let's final question from Avis. We got about 90 seconds left. Avis, go.
Sure. So, in addition to all of the other traumas, and I think that's aptly put, that we have to face every day just as being Black and surviving in America, we are living in this unprecedented time where, for example, we're facing this pandemic. We're 3 times more likely to be diagnosed, twice as likely to die. So a lot of us are just plain dealing with grief. A lot of us are dealing with health challenges. A lot of us, in addition to that, are dealing with employment challenges or business challenges, as we just spoke about previously. So my question to you is, how do we handle these new, very unique stresses on top of everything else that we're facing?
Real quick, about 45 seconds each. Go ahead.
You take it one moment at a time. And what I mean by that is because right now I can't handle all 10 of those. I have to handle the one right now that is really having the most impact on me, right? So if we can, I do want to end just inviting everybody to register for this event that we're doing on Saturday. It's a free virtual vision board party, and it's national, and it's with guests, live music, because live music helps us to unwind. I hear Roland Martin's jams in the car all the time. Live music does that with Olivia Dope. Angela Yee, she's going to be my guest. I'm hosting the event, and it's really to help you ladies, sisters, to please take time just for you. And we have amazing wellness giveaways for you as well, including some stuff from this beautiful skincare box that we'll be giving away to hundreds of people. So it's time for you. That's what it is, Dr. Avis. Time for you every day. Find something that matters that's going to deposit in you. And over time, that's how we're going to make it.
Yeah, and remind yourself that our ancestors, right, dealt with things just as, worse,
Worse.
than some of the we're being exposed to. And we are creating a place and a special space for Black women right now to be able to lean on one another, just like we did during civil rights, just like we've done through so many things that it has impacted Black men and women over the generations. So let's lean into that together, like Coach Jesse said, and join us, and let's create a healthier vision of what our future looks like for us and our kids.
All right, folks, we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for having us.
I appreciate it. Folks, the Department of Defense announced Friday that they're going to do a 60-day stand-down focusing on extremism in the military. Kind of important. It's a crucial issue because we saw with January 6th, there were members of the military who were involved. And you might remember you had some people who were removed from the National Guard as a result of their ties to white supremacy groups. And so Pentagon Secretary Lloyd Austin, the first African-American, he actually issued this edict. And so that's really important. And so, look, bottom line is this here. This is what happens when you get someone who understands the importance of those issues, and that's what Lloyd Austin is doing. All right, folks, we got a couple of in memoriams before we end the show today. First up is a former heavyweight boxing champion, Leon Spinks, passed away in Las Vegas at the age of 67. Many folks, of course, will remember Leon Spinks for his upset of Muhammad Ali to win the heavyweight championship crown. Well, of course, Ali came back and took his crown back, becoming the first three-time winner. He had been having significant, Leon Spinks, had been having significant health challenges over the last several years. He was inducted, he retired in 1995, inducted into the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2019 and was hospitalized in December, same year, after the cancer spread to his bladder. This was a statement from his publicist. Leon fought his battle with numerous illnesses resiliently, never losing his trademark smile, showing true Spinks determination. He never threw in the towel. He passed away surrounded by his wife, Brenda Gloria Spinks, close friends, and other family members. Also, Danny Ray, James Brown's longtime MC, and his Cape Man died last Tuesday, folks, of the age of 87 from natural causes. Ray was a staple at James Brown's legendary live shows. He would usually walk on stage and drape James Brown with a cape. Those close to Ray and James Brown say they both fed off of each other. The two met at the Apollo in 1960. Ray originally served as James Brown's valet before becoming his MC. Ray told the Augusta Chronicle in 2011 how he started emceeing for James Brown. He stated, the first time I ever did a live show, it scared me to death. The guy who usually came out to do the show didn't show up. So he asked me, have you ever been on stage? I said, nah, man. He said, well, tonight's your night. The James Brown estate put out this statement saying the James Brown estate mourns the passing of Mr. Danny Ray, the legendary MC and Cape Man for James Brown. Ray worked with Brown from 1960 until the music legend's death on Christmas Day 2006. He became famous for draping a cape over Brown at the end of his signature tune, Please, Please, Please. Mr. Ray was the second hardest working man in show business. And so certainly condolences to the families of Leon Spinks as well as Danny Ray. All right, folks, don't forget, please support what we do here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. Your donations are critically important. We certainly want to thank Ben, Avis, and Julian for joining us today. We have folks, I'm going to end the show this way. Folks, a bunch of y'all have actually sent some stuff in, your donations to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Let me see if we got, we get that brother who certainly wanted to pass on to Erica. Don't forget, Method Man actually called Julian that red bone. Y'all remember at the American Black Film Festival, he was like, yo, man, who that sister, the older sister on the show, the red bone. He said, yeah, I like her. And I was like, oh, look at that. Julian got Method Man all fired up. I mean, we all saw the movie with, of course, Wendy Williams, and she alleged she got with Method Man. So I'm saying, watch yourself, Julian. All right. Claudia and Rosemary Cleveland said, it's that time of year again. We're renewing our membership for the third year. We're also renewing our daughter's membership, and their names never appeared on your list on Friday. Well, we'll get them taken care of. So Chandra Carradine and family, Crowley, Texas. Arima Granger and family in Birmingham, Alabama. We're praying for your continued good health. Keep up the great work you are doing. And so we appreciate that. That's how you do it. You got the family involved with their $200 donation to our Bring the Funk fan club. So we certainly appreciate that. I'm going to read one more before we end the show. And let's see here. Y'all think I'm literally opening the mail that came in today. And so there's no note to it, but I certainly want to thank Barbara Banford. Barbara, thank you so very much for your support of our Bring the Funk fan club. Kelly Parker, let me see here. Kelly Parker sent this card in, so I think she probably got a note. Let's see here, okay. Kelly got all kind of stuff in here. She got a cute little card. So, okay, Kelly. Y'all see Kelly's card right here. Dearest Roland, thank you for all that you do for the Black community. My daughter and I watch you every night. Please continue to enlighten us daily. Sincerely, Sheila Kelly Parker, as well as Leah Parker. Well, Sheila and Kelly, I appreciate it. Thank you so very much for both of y'all. $100 joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Again, folks, I said our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 or more, but if you don't have that, that's fine. People give as little as $1. People have given us as high as $10,000. The goal is to get 20,000 people contributing an average of $50 each. $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day to reach our goal of 1 million annually. Last year, y'all really did that thing. Y'all gave $672,000 to us direct, and then more than $300,000 came in on YouTube. So we did hit our goal last year. We want to hit our goal again this year. So again, Cash App. If you give to us directly versus on YouTube, all the proceeds come to us, not 55% like on YouTube. So go to Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, paypal.me/ pull it up, please, R Martin Unfiltered. Come on, y'all move. Pull it up, please. Thank you very much. paypal.me/ R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo.com/RM Unfiltered. I don't know why the graphic's not up. Hello? Y'all slow? I was like, when I was reading the letters, that was the cue. Then, of course, Zelle, Roland@RolandSMartin.com. I don't know why y'all still don't have the graphic ready. Okay, control room. I'm going to hit you. I'm going to do, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. Control room, I'm going to do what James Brown did. I'm going to start finding y'all. Since we just read the Danny Ray story, when James Brown, when the band didn't hit their cues, James would turn around in the middle of the concert and kept singing. He would go. That was 15. We would find them $5. Then he would find them $10. So let me say this right now. To everybody in the control room, y'all make these mistakes again, I'm going to hit y'all with them James Brown fines. Yeah, y'all want to pull that graphic up right now. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, paypal.me/R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo.com/RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Fines will be instituted tomorrow. Don't think I'm playing. I'll see y'all tomorrow.